On today's episode of the Students of Storrs podcast, sponsored by Gansett Wraps, we'll be talking UConn women's basketball. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in yet again. Hope everybody is staying healthy and positive during these trying times. I'm your host, Noam Watt, and I'm today joined by two experts on this topic of women's basketball. Dashefsky, a women's basketball team leader for UCTV, and Sean Janos, the women's basketball beat writer for the Daily Campus. Thanks so much for joining me today, guys. Hope you're both doing well.
Hey, what's going on?
Feeling great, Noam. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to have you guys here. So let's get right into it. Episode 3 of the Students of Storrs podcast is going to be filled with what ifs and a lot of what's to be, what's to come. But first, let's start with those what ifs. We're going to recap this past season. So, Danny, we'll start with you. How far do you think this team would have made it in the tournament?
Well, I remember back when one of our meetings, probably around January, we were talking. We probably asked the same question, probably for a husky talk or something like that. But I remember a lot of people in the room were saying, "Oh, maybe a Sweet 16, Elite 8 loss," and I think a lot of it came down to seeding and where we were at the end of the year. I think we were as a 3 seed. I mean, we were peaking at the right time. We were playing really well in the tournament, especially we closed out the year really well. But again, it was whenever even Tennessee, we kind of like not struggled, but we didn't look the best. So it was all the good teams we were noticing, like, okay, we beat the in-conference games. But then when it comes to, the actual good teams, we notice that our three-point shooting goes down and we're not as dominant. So I wouldn't say that like a Final Four bid would be off the table because that's the expectation. Like we're UConn basketball, we get to the Final Four. But some of the games, I remember mid-season, we'd be playing like Memphis or Buffalo. We'd be struggling. And my point was always that in March that you never. It's a one game and you're out. So one cold spell from UConn shooting and you're done. So you play a team that's competitive, you might be out. So I wouldn't say the way that we closed the season out was encouraging. And I mentioned that when we won the AAC conference, I said they're peaking at the right time. It looks good for March Madness, but looking back on it, I'm like, I don't know. Like they'd be in a way, they'd play the first 2 rounds at Storrs, so that'd be the home crowd. But then they'd play round of 16 and then Elite 8. I'm not sure where, Texas maybe. But do you guys remember where they'd be playing that?
Yeah, it flipped like every single edition of bracketology, but it kind of at the end looked like the Portland Regional, which would have been like you line up against Oregon in the Elite 8 matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we don't know where the seeding was. They didn't even do bracketology when everything got canceled. Everything fell like dominoes and it all stopped. So I guess we'll never know like who would even be in their bracket. But, Baylor, who we lost to, was a 6 seed. Now, if they were a 2 seed in our bracket, I don't know. I mean, there's a good chance that we could have gotten knocked out pretty early. So, yeah, I think the way we're playing, I don't think we would have won the championship. That's for sure, especially the way Oregon is playing. But yeah, I think a Final Four bid would have been acceptable in this year because obviously with UConn basketball, it's a championship or bust. But Gino in all of his press conferences was saying like, "Hey, we're 29-3. Like, get off our back." Like I know the expectations are high, but we're still a good team. But yeah, that's basically what my thoughts are on the season. It was a good season, but there were a lot of gaping holes that I think all the reporters and that especially Sean, you were in the rooms that we were all noticing that like there were some faults in the team that were cause for concern maybe in the tournament. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, yeah. I was probably a little bit more optimistic than most on this team this season. The way I went at this question, how far they would have gotten in the tournament, I kind of looked at the floor and the ceiling, and I think the floor would have been they get bounced in the second round. They draw a tough matchup against, like you said, a tough 6 seed or something. But
hold on. You think they could have lost in the second round?
I think it would have been possible, yeah.
Wow. That, oh my
Again,
God.
that's the floor.
That's a
That's the
take right
basement.
there.
But again, team of extremes. Ceiling, I think they could have won the national championship. All they would have had to do is pull off 2, maybe 3 upsets if they get a tough draw. And, beat all the teams you're supposed to, which they proved to be very good at throughout the regular season. 29-3, the 3 losses coming to Oregon, Baylor, South Carolina. I think it would have been entirely possible for them to make a run or come up extremely short. But I think the Sweet 16, Elite 8 is a very reasonable range.
So I have a question for you guys. So the last bracketology that came out before, the whole sports shutdown essentially had them as the 2 seed in the Portland Regional with Oregon as the 1 seed. Sean, I'll start with you. If they got to the Elite 8 and played Oregon, would they have won?
Short answer, no, they wouldn't have won. I think Oregon was the best team in the country. I think if they played out the tournament, they would have gone all the way. Janescu is just an unstoppable player, and the way she runs the pick and roll, I don't see any defense. Even South Carolina's slowing them down. So, no, we would run into a buzzsaw there for sure.
Danny, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I remember one of the press conferences. They said they were actually encouraged by some of the footage that they were watching from the Oregon game. They said they were in the game. They just were making shots, which is, I guess they were trying to spin it in a good way, like, oh, we took out positives, but I think it was like a Warriors 2017 type of thing where it's like, maybe there were some things that you could do, but you might have to play perfect to beat them. Like I didn't really see a way that they could beat Oregon, especially the way Oregon came into. I'm pretty sure Gamble, not even XL Center, Gamble, probably XL Center, and just beat the brakes off of them in like record fashion too. I remember that. So yeah, I don't. Especially so, if Oregon was game planning to get into the Final Four against UConn, there's no way they'd let UConn, a team that has struggled against good teams, stop them. And that's crazy to say because UConn's usually the team that people have to go through to actually do something. So yeah, I don't think UConn would have won, but hey, maybe they could have kept it close.
And I'm happy that you brought up the.
Sorry,
I'm
Sean.
sorry.
Yeah, go.
I'm happy that
No, you go.
I'm glad that you brought up the Oregon game because looking at the box score, Sabrina really didn't have that great of a game. Not as great as she could have. 9 assists, 4 turnovers, only 10 points. It was really the rest of the team that killed us. Killed UConn. And then on the other side of the floor, Megan couldn't get going. She shot 3 for 16, 2 for 9 from deep. And yes, it was at Gamble, and I'm pretty sure it was the largest loss at Gamble that UConn had suffered in the last 20 or so years.
Yeah, I think it may have actually been the largest loss ever at UConn or at Gamble, which is, it's crazy if you think about it. They only lost by like 18 or something, but it was also the first loss in 10 plus years or something. And then I remember sitting in the press conference that game, and you had Kelly Graves, who's one of the best coaches in all of college basketball, just an absolutely great guy too. You hear his voice and you could just sit and listen to him talk for hours. And then you had UNESCO talking about walking into Gamble and looking up and seeing all those banners. And a part of me honestly feels bad that she didn't get to compete in this year's tournament to put up a banner of her own in Oregon because she deserved it. She was a transcendent basketball player, let alone a women's college basketball player. That doesn't matter. She was a transcendent basketball player. She put up a ridiculous amount of triple doubles. She was constantly on SportsCenter making people look silly. She's won the Wooden Award before. She's probably going to win it again this year. She won the Wade Award, which is another award for best player in college basketball. She won it today. That's her second time winning it. She's only the 6th player ever to win it twice. So I'm going to be honest, if the Huskies had to face Oregon in Portland, which is just down the road from Eugene, I don't think they would have kept it closer than they did at Gamble. In all honesty, that game wasn't particularly close at all either. So I don't know. It might be a silver lining of this tournament not happening is that the Huskies' streak of continuous Final Fours will probably live on next year when Paige Bueckers arrives, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode. But man, I feel bad for Oregon. I feel bad for the seniors. I feel bad especially for Sabrina UNESCO, who didn't get her chance to hang a banner up inside of Oregon. We're going to go back to UConn, though. We're going to go first to our biggest surprise of the season. Try and keep your answer to a couple sentences. Biggest surprise for the season. Danny, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, when I saw this, I think immediately the first name was Anna Makarat. Um, beginning of the season, I didn't even see her playing that much. But Kyla Irwin was playing her role for a while, but she really got going mid to late season, like couple like 15, 17. I think she got into like the 20s a few times. And then, just recently that last game, the AAC Conference Championship game, she put up 17. She was lights out from three, especially as a freshman. Like that's just great for the future. And yeah, everyone was raving about her by the end of the year. So definitely on a Makarat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Anna really impressed. She looked like the game just came so much more natural to her as the season went on. And when she first arrived, Gino kind of talked about like, oh, she's played in the pros before in Poland, so she knows what to expect. But she came in and she looked a little bit slow. She looked tentative. She definitely wasn't confident at all. And then it was about a couple weeks into the new year. She put up 24 points at East Carolina. She had that one play where it was like a fast break and she caught it back to the basket and just threw it behind her back to a wide open Kristen Williams for a layup. Kind of from that point, she almost got her swagger, which was it was cool to see. She just turned 20 the other day, so happy birthday, Anna, if you're tuned in. In 3 more years of her, she's going to be so, so good, and people aren't going to think about her when they go to scout UConn, so that's for sure. Sean, what about you?
I'm gonna have to go with the other freshman, Aubrey Griffin. She was the integral part of the win over Tennessee. She scored, I think it was 13 points. Yeah, 13 points, 7 rebounds, and she came in with 5 steals. She came in, changed the game with her defense, as she has been known to do. She crashes the offensive boards harder than anybody. She's extremely long, athletic, great at getting to the rim, gets fouled a lot. There was one game in the conference tournament where I remember she shot double-digit free throws. So I think UConn, a team that was really lacking size all season, relied heavily on Liv, and whenever Liv got in foul trouble, had to find some length on the bench. Aubrey Griffin was that player who stepped up at a very young age. I'm happy to see her do that, and I'm excited to see what she can do the next 3 years.
Yeah, I kind of think Aubrey might have the most potential on this team, especially if she's as coachable as Gino says she is. She has unbelievable athleticism. She's 6'1", but she plays like she's 6'4", 6'5". Her arms are just so long. She had a couple of those impact games. She had one, I think, early against Seton Hall. Yeah, she had a double-double that game in early December, 25 points and 12 rebounds for a freshman on the road in a hostile environment in Seton Hall, who had never beaten UConn in years and years and years. So I think Aubrey Griffin, Anna Makarat, those are 2 players that with this next year's freshman class coming in, people aren't going to be able to pay attention to them on the scouting report. There's just too much talent on this team with Liv and Kristen going to be carrying the load. Don't forget about Avina Westbrook. We'll get to her, I'm sure, later in the episode. But those 2 sophomores in Makarat, Aubrey Griffin, they're going to be dangerous next year. Now, we're going to move to the flip side. What was your biggest disappointment of the season? Danny, we'll start with you again on this one.
Well, yeah, I kind of had the same sentiment about this player for the whole season. It obviously was Olivia Nelson-Ododa. I mean, I feel like, I caught a couple practices and you could tell Gino was being really hard on her, and I think she deserved it. I think there was a little bit of tentativeness for her to take that next step, that leadership role, because, she was the number 1 recruit All-American, and she had viral videos on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram, and she came in last year and took the backseat. She came off the bench for most of the season, and then she got the starting role for a few games. And this season is like, okay, Katie Lou's gone, Nafisa's gone, like Liv, like you're the tallest player on the team. Like UConn big men have been, or big women have been like always revere, like Tina Charles and Brianna Stewart. Like this is your time, and she really didn't progress much. That we saw. I mean, she obviously her average only went up by about 3 points per game, I think, and a lot of times in big moments of the game, she wouldn't even be on the floor. Gina would be hard on her, not setting a pick right, or she wouldn't be getting enough rebounds. So, yeah, definitely Liv.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little unconventional here. I'm super disappointed about Megan Walker and her decision to go to the WNBA draft. Now, I'm really happy for her. I think she'll be a tremendous WNBA player. And if it's time, it's definitely time. But that's exactly the thing. She's going to be a tremendous WNBA player. It would have been awesome to have a player like that on the roster next season. If she returned for her senior season, you kind of had one of the best players in the country with Kristen, Liv, Anna, Aubrey, Paige, this exciting freshman class. But now they're really lacking a senior presence. I mean, Avina Westbrook's going to be there. She's a transfer. We'll see how she can lead. But it's a lot of the pressure is going to fall on Kristen and Liv's shoulders now, and we're going to see if they can rise to that occasion.
Sean, I'm going to hop on that one. My biggest surprise and my biggest disappointment coming in a package deal, and that package is Megan Walker. When I got the email from UConn that she had declared for the WNBA draft, it was the Saturday we were leaving campus, and I was like, "Hold on, what? Like, Meg is going to the WNBA the day after Gino had said that he doesn't expect anybody to leave?" I mean, that was just it came out of nowhere, and yeah, she would have been the best player on the best team in the country next year. She would have been the senior captain who had incredible potential, who shot nearly 40% from three this year, who was the conference player of the year. And she decided to leave her team, quite honestly, and go to the WNBA. And it just doesn't make much sense for me. In the four biggest games of the year, Baylor at home, Tennessee at home, Oregon at home, South Carolina on the road, she shot a combined 16 for 62. That's barely 25%, if my math is right. 16 of 62 in the four biggest games of the year, including in the losses, 5 of 20 at Baylor, or against Baylor, and 3 for 16 against Oregon. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like those numbers aren't going to translate too well to the WNBA. She's going to have to step up her game a lot. She's going to have to improve her consistency, because if she's struggling when she's the focal point of the offense against these teams that clearly were scouting UConn all season long, I don't know how she's going to do it in the WNBA when everybody's bigger, stronger, faster, and just better. So that was a huge surprise for me. It was also a big disappointment for me. And it also was disappointing that she didn't show up in big game time after time. She trounced all over the cakewalk games. You pick out a bunch of them: 26 against Memphis, 22 against Houston, 26 against Notre Dame at home. But those games are cupcakes. And when they needed her most, quite frankly, she didn't show up. Now, before we get to previewing next year's season, we do want to take a moment to remind you that Gansett Wraps, the preferred lunch of Katie Lou Samuelson, is still open for business. Gansett, located at 12 Royce Circle in Storrs, is offering curbside pickup as well as delivery service during their normal hours. Please consider supporting a local business during these hard times. For more information, head to www.gansettwraps.com, check them out on Facebook, or download the Gansett Wraps app. Now, turning the page to next year, one of the probably going to be the most highly anticipated seasons for UConn basketball, both for the men and the women, as the Huskies are returning to the Big East. Now, as for the women, they have an unbelievable recruiting class. This recruiting class is stacked. Paige Bueckers, number one player in the country, Gatorade National Player of the Year, hasn't lost a game in her last 2 years of high school, always on ESPN. Slam, she was on the cover of Slam, Bleacher Report. Paige is going to be a sensational player, an incredible personality. Fans are going to love her. Then they got 4 more commits after that. Now, compared to the 2 they had this year, that's going to be a lot of depth. They have Mir McLean, Aaliyah Edwards, Piaf Gabriel, and Nika Mule. All 5 of those people are in the top 31 in the commitment pool. So, guys, I want you guys to talk to me about this recruiting class. Tell me a little bit about what we can expect from some of them next year. Sean, we'll start with you on this one.
Right. So there's going to be a lot of turnover this year, losing a lot of the seniors. And though they didn't play big minutes other than Crystal and Kyla in spots, they're going to be able to bring on all this young talent. And really brighten up the future a bit, especially with Paige. It all starts with Paige. I was watching a video where her high school teammate, Maya Naji, said that she could score anytime she wants, but she chooses to make her teammates better. And that's exactly what Gino says he loves about her.
Sean, I'm gonna hop in and say I was just watching that video this morning. That was episode 1 of the Slam season, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, that's a great watch. If you guys haven't watched that, go on YouTube. Just watch Slam Hopkins Royals. I think there's 3 episodes, maybe a 4th special one for when Karl Anthony Towns gave her Gatorade Player of the Year. That's a good watch. Sean, sorry, back to you.
Oh, no worries. Well, Gino said about Paige, he said it's important for us to get kids that are talented and unselfish who can score, and Paige has been able to do those things. So he's obviously very excited to bring Paige along, but I think that she's equally as excited to come play for Gino. She called him the best coach ever and said that he's going to maximize her talents and get the best out of her. So obviously, there's a lot to look forward to with Paige. She's extremely fast, tight handle, gifted passer. Above all else, she's a very gifted passer, and she has an unbelievable jump shot. In that video that I watched, their coach said, I forgot his name, but he said she played varsity in 8th grade, and in her very first game, shot 8 for 9 from the 3-point line. When I was in 8th grade, I don't think I could reach from the 3-point line. So that's a very crazy, impressive stat, yeah. As for the rest of the class, Mira McCloon reminds me a lot of Kristen Williams. It's going to be exciting to see both of them on the court together. They're crazy athletic. They're fearless when they take the ball to the rim. They love to finish close to the basket. And for sub-6-foot players, they really crash the boards hard. They have tremendous hustle.
Mira McClain's the number 21 in the class. Number 3 at her position, she's a wing, so she's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. And then number 5 at the position, Edwards, she's going to add a lot of much-needed size at 6'2". She can jump out of the gym. She loves to rebound, crash hard. She hustles all the time. She doesn't really have a jumper, but she's deadly when attacking the rim. Reminds me a little bit of Aubrey. And then Gabriel, also much-needed size at 6'5". She's not like that big and strong, but she's super athletic. She has crazy quick feet, tremendous footwork. She kind of fills the forward position better than the center position, but given UConn's size, I think 6'5" is going to get her a lot of minutes at the 5. She can hit a mid-range on good days, threes. We'll see how that comes along, how her face-up game can progress. And then, of course, the final recruit, Nika. Like Paige, she's a tall point guard, loves to push tempo. She's super fast. She's capable of running half-court sets, pick and rolls, but she's definitely a lot more deadly in transition. And thanks to her speed and her ability to really try hard on defense, she comes away with a lot of steals and starts a lot of fast breaks. And as we saw this season, a lot of UConn's offense comes from the defense.
Sean, that's really, really great analysis of every one of those players. I think Gino's going to have so many more tools at his hands next year than he did this year. And you look the year after that, AZ Fudd, who's best friends with Paige. I mean, Paige is constantly on Twitter saying, like, AZ come to UConn, AZ come home, trying to start these recruiting campaigns to get AZ to come to Storrs to play with her. But as for next year's class, there's going to be a ton of potential there. Danny, you want to chip in a little more?
Yeah, I mean, with Paige, it's like, obviously there's an amazing abundance of talent that's coming in, but, Bleacher Report is calling her like the future of basketball. Like there's levels to this, it's like you got like a LeBron or Zion type player coming into the program. And then with that, you also have her coming into a system. Now, with Gino has his own way. Gino has a system in place where, he has the players work with each other, and I think she'll adapt well, but we don't know. I mean, Olivia Nelson-Adota, she came to the program with a lot of hype. And, it took her a while to really get her footing right in the program. So I'm not, Paige will start, especially with all the turnover coming in. Crystal's gone. Kyla is gone. Even, Sean mentioned earlier, her minutes weren't a lot. And Megan's gone. So there's a lot of roles and places where people can switch around. So she'll be playing, but I don't know where the focus is going to be on offense now. I think it's still going to try to run through Liv, where I think that's where Gino's trying to transition it. But I think Paige, maybe come mid-season, she's going to really start to get a footing of the offense. Now, I think what the most intriguing player to come in is actually Piet Gabriel, because after watching all the games, you'd see Liv. They didn't have really a backup center to help out Liv get some of the minutes off. I mean, whenever Liv would come off the court, they'd have to go small. But you have Gabriel come in, then learn and try to mirror Liv's game. That's going to be really big for them, so that Liv won't be having to play big minutes, especially in games where they're probably going to win. It'd be good for Gabriel to get more and more playing time. She's 6'5". Liv is probably only like 6'3". She'll be the tallest player on the team by a good amount. And obviously Nika Mule. I remember back in October, maybe even not even October, like last year, I was probably talking about Nika Mule on uh, UCTV Sports, the live show, and we were talking about how she's this new recruit, foreign, and there's a lot unknown about her. But like Paige, she's pass first, which has been a trend for Gino. He likes the players that can facilitate and work in an offense and get to the open guy or open man. So yeah, I think a lot of good options, and that's what UConn needs. Is that frequently we'd see only four reliable players: Meg, Kristen, Crystal, and Liv. Now we have a bunch of new players that can find their role, and then Gino can really be like, okay, we can get this player off the bench. They'll come in for this role. So I think the depth that's coming in with this class is going to be really beneficial.
You guys both make awesome points. I think when UConn's offense is running at its best, it runs through the paint. Like you touched on earlier, the Tina Charles, the Brianna Stewart, Rebecca Lobo. Quick throwback there, 25 years ago today, UConn won their first national championship, beating Tennessee. Rebecca Lobo was the leader of that team. But when they're able to get it through the paint and then move the ball with pace and a purpose and run that offense to a T, that's when they're most successful. Then everything else, sets up beautifully. It allows their defense to work. It allows them to get in transition. And I think with Paige Bueckers leading the way next year, this team has just ridiculous potential. Now, going along with that, the landscape of college basketball is going to be so changed next year. The biggest thing is Sabrina Ionescu leaving. That is a huge void for Oregon. I'm not sure how they're going to fill that void. I know Ruthie Hebert. I think Satu Sabali also leaving. So Oregon probably going to be down. Notre Dame probably still going to be down. Maybe that's just a bias, but they were terrible this year, so I don't know how they're going to get better next year. But then you still got those teams. South Carolina is going to be really, really good. Aaliyah Boston had an unbelievable freshman year. Baylor's still going to be good. Kim Mulkey is running an absolute machine down in Texas with Baylor. But UConn is going to be back to being bad for college basketball, and Gino is more than excited for that. Now, obviously, no Megan Walker, no Crystal Dangerfield, but like you guys just talked about, this five that's coming in is going to bring the Huskies back to the top. Now, I have a question for you guys. One sentence. Where will this team be standing when all is said and done next season? Sean, I'll go to you first.
When all is said and done, a lot of these recruits, they're freshmen. They're not going to be as good as they're going to be when all is said and done with their UConn careers. So, with that in mind, I think they could still crack into the Final Four, Elite Eight. Like you said, Oregon's going to take a step back, but man, South Carolina and Baylor are machines. South Carolina is going to be graduating their leading scorer, and Baylor 3 of their top 4. But they have pretty strong recruiting classes coming in, and South Carolina is returning a lot of super important players. So, again, it always depends how the chips fall, but Final Four, Elite Eight, something like that. Maybe a 30-win season. We'll see.
Danny, how about you?
yeah, all said and done, I think my tenure at UConn will probably go without a national championship to watch. I'll be a senior next year, and I don't think my senior year they're going to be winning the national championship. I think they'll make the Final Four, though. I have a lot of faith in the progress of Liv and Kristen Williams, too. Obviously Paige come in, but I think we'll make the Final Four, especially with Oregon, taking on the downturn. But I think they'll make the Final Four. I think this is going to be a team that the fans love, and they're really going to fight hard. But I don't think they got the makeup right now to win the entire thing.
I'm actually going to go against the grain that both of you guys said. I think they're going to win the national championship next year. I think Gino's going to come in with a mentality that we haven't seen in a while. This senior class was the first in, I believe, like 10 to 12 years that didn't win a national championship. And I don't think Gino's very happy about that. Now, next year, the Sweet 16 Elite 8 regional round back in Albany. The year after that, back in Bridgeport. That's huge. When the Huskies don't have to travel for that Elite 8 Sweet 16 round, it benefits them tremendously. So this year, I guess I'm going to say this, they kind of got lucky not having to travel. Next year, back in Albany, huge home court advantage. You look at last year's games against UCLA and Louisville there, it was literally like playing at the XL Center or Gampel Pavilion. So I think they'll make it to that round. I think they'll make it to the Final Four. And I think by that point in the season, 32, 34 games in, Paige Bueckers is going to be ready to shine. I think they're going to be national champions again next year. Danny, I think you're going to go out, and I hope you're going to go out on a good note. Now we're going to move into our last segment of today's episode. These are rapid fire questions. So one word each or one sentence each at a maximum. First and foremost, and we're going back to this year's team on this one. First and foremost, Danny, your team MVP from this season.
Crystal Dangerfield, the team's rock, the team's anchor, the team's captain. Definitely her.
Sean?
I'm going to have to go with Megan Walker. Now, we did just discuss how she didn't show up to the big games, but in all those games that they were supposed to win, day in and day out, you could rely on her to score up around 20 points, grab up around 10 rebounds, doing it extremely efficiently. And anytime the offense seemed to stagnate, she'd get her shot, whether it was the turnaround from the baseline or that three from the wing that she loves to shoot. So I'm going to go with her and the vast improvement that she made on defense this year. She was able to guard anybody.
Yeah, you make a great point. I know I was hard on her earlier in the episode, but you did make a great point. Every game that they were supposed to win, she carried the team, quite frankly. Danny, you also make a great point. Without Crystal Dangerfield, this team really wouldn't have gone anywhere. They would have had no one to run the point. Now, next up, Sean, you're going to go first on this one. Your favorite moment of this season?
I think it has to be senior day at Gampel when UConn really stuck it to UCF. That game got so physical. They busted Liv in the nose, took down Crystal on a fast break, and hit Meg in the face, all within like a 10-minute span of a super close game. So when UConn was able to pull that one out, you could feel the energy in the building that everyone was glad to beat who became essentially the villains that day, UCF.
Yeah, UCF always plays chippy. I'm not really disappointed that they're not going to be playing them anymore. That was a good game too, and that was quite the 10-minute sequence. Probably the best 10-minute sequence of the season right there.
Oh yeah, agreed. The fact that it was a close game at home, which we didn't get to see much of, was super exciting. I mean, USF has probably been our biggest rival the first 5 years, but the last 2 years, UCF really put together their program and started making runs at UConn. So it was real exciting to watch that game.
Danny, how about you? Favorite moment?
Yeah, I actually covered the UCF game, so I didn't even think about that. But I think my favorite moment was probably when they won the AAC conference championship. They were like throwing confetti, and honestly, like I don't think even in that moment we expected the season to fall apart like it did. So they were all like, it was such a great win, and like I think that was right after Kylie got hurt, and they're all playing for her. It was just a great team win, and they were all so happy. It's really disappointing that they couldn't finish out the season, even if we didn't expect them to win, because you could tell that the unit that they had this year was really solid.
Yeah, that was a fun game. I'm really glad you got to be there for that, right up close and personal as they were, throwing that confetti, like you said. Now, back to you, Danny. How will this team be remembered? One sentence. This team will be remembered as.
This team will be remembered as transitional. A lot of teams go through transition periods, and I think this is another one of them. Obviously, this year is probably going to get lost in the UConn as far as no NCAA tournament, but it was a transition year, and it's time to revamp.
That's a great word. It's a great phrase. Great description of this team as well. Sean, how about you?
This team will be remembered as the COVID-19 team. I mean, such a wild circumstance that have happened. It's so different from anything that we've ever seen. But I think the saddest part is this team really started to put it together down the stretch. They went on a run. They trounced through the conference tournament, beating everybody by 30. The team was looking as good as it had all season, and all of a sudden, season over, COVID-19. So I think there's going to be a lot of, like you said in the beginning of the episode, what ifs with this team.
Well, this team was special. They were fun to watch. They really came together as the season went on. They fought through a lot of adversity, too. We didn't even talk about Avina Westbrook, who was deemed ineligible for who knows what reason by the NCAA. Yeah, she was a transfer. She applied for a waiver. There were clearly some circumstances at Tennessee. Gino wasn't happy with that. But this team capped off a 139-0 record for UConn in the American. The Huskies are headed back home to the Big East next year, and the Huskies will be bad for college basketball. Mark my word. They'll be bad for college basketball these next 4 years with Paige Bueckers leading the way. Danny, Sean, any final things you guys want to say before we close out?
Nah, had a lot of fun. Happy to do it again, and really excited for next season. Obviously, going to be keeping up with all the off-season stuff, but yeah, I'm ready to get back into it. Really,
I am so happy to be back in the Big East, ditching the American. That's awesome. It'll be exciting to see how we measure up with DePaul, who we beat this year, and Marquette, who I think is going to be a really good Big East team next year. So it'll be exciting to see that. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Noam. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, guys. Really glad you could make it. Sean, especially for you, this is your last season, but hopefully we'll get you on for another episode before the academic year technically closes. Now, this was episode 3, talking UConn women's basketball with Danny Dashefsky and Sean Janos, sponsored by Gansett Wraps. Next episode, I'll be joined by Mike Mavrodakis and Danny Barletta to talk UConn men's hockey. The Ice Bus came to a screeching halt right as hockey's tournament play was supposed to begin, but they had a great season, making that late push towards the end, beating UMass at home to clinch a playoff spot. We're going to talk all things Mike Kavanaugh's Ice Bus squad. That episode will come to you on Sunday. Now, in the meantime, for Danny Dashefsky and Sean Janos, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to episode 3 of the Students of Storrs podcast. Have a great night, stay healthy, and go Huskies.